Hi, Year 12. It's me, Mr. Azapadi, with another video. This on meditation. This one is looking at whether meditation is actually a religious practice or whether you don't need to be religious to practice it. So I thought I'd start with the title just being an exam question. Evaluate to what extent meditation is a religious practice. So this is one of the key subtopics within meditation. One of the things the specification looks at. You know, I suppose the reason why it's become an interesting topic is because meditation's become popular outside of Buddhism and outside of the Buddhist world, and a bit like yoga, I suppose, which has its basis in Hinduism. The question is that legitimate? Can you take Buddhism out? Can you take Buddhism outside? Sorry, can you take meditation outside the Buddhist context or not? I should say at the beginning, I'm recording lots of videos today, so I'm going through things fairly quick. If there are any issues, if there are any things that are really unclear because maybe I've gone through too quick, do let me know. Just send me a message that way. Okay, so that's your title. I'm going to go through a bit of information at the beginning. Might be good to make a few notes as we go through, but I'll let you know. So today, meditation is becoming increasingly common among non-Buddhists. Many see it as a non-religious practice. They argue that meditation helps people in ways that we can observe and that we do not need to be a Buddhist or agree with all Buddhist beliefs in order to practice meditation. We are going to look at whether this view is correct. You need to know this, so maybe just to summarize that idea. Lots of non-Buddhists meditate. It's often promoted as something that's not religious, that kind of thing. You've seen it promoted in schools. It even links out to things that are beyond meditation, like, if you've ever seen these mindfulness colouring books and there's a general stress on mindfulness, well, that all comes from Buddhist meditation. I found this a couple of years ago, Woodlands Natural Health Centre. This place still exists. I don't quite know where it is. You might know better than me. But this is a kind of a place that offers alternative therapies of various kinds, and one of the things it does in meditation, or at least it used to. I noticed that although that basically it doesn't do any meditation classes anymore, at least it doesn't, as far as I can see on the website now. But this is an old shot, and what I thought was interesting about this was it offers meditation, and then it says, it's on the main bit of writing there, but I've picked it out at the bottom. You do not need to be religious or believe in any spiritual practice to meditate or to benefit from it. So that clearly is someone saying that you don't need to be religious to meditate. Meditation is not a religious practice. It's something that religious people do, but it's also something anyone can do. That's the idea there. Now, one of the reasons why lots of non-religious people embrace meditation is because the health benefits of meditation, or benefits in general, are being increasingly recognised by scientists and by health professionals. And there have been quite a lot of studies into the health benefits of meditation. Scientifically, through health research, those kind of things. So what I want you to do is watch these two clips that talk about those benefits and just make notes on any ways in which scientists have found that meditation is beneficial to people. I did used to have a really good video about with people talking about pain relief, because one thing meditation has been used to treat is pain. People who suffer from chronic pain, that means they've got certain pain in their body that just won't disappear and can't be treated effectively with medication. And that seems to show that meditation has really positive benefits in terms of pain relief, particularly in terms of not so much in terms of the pain going away, but in terms of people feeling more happy to live with the pain, or finding they can tolerate pain more. Okay, so watch those videos and make notes on what they say. This is a guy called Sam Harris. We're going to look at a reading to do with him, but I found this video as well, so good to watch this video and just think about this. He likes meditation. But he's against meditation being used as part of a religion. He doesn't identify as a Buddhist. He doesn't want it to be associated with the label of Buddhism. However, as that last question indicates, and we'll talk about this later in the lesson, some people might say that he is a Buddhist, at least in some things that he believes. He's quite Buddhist in his beliefs. So you could challenge that he's actually using meditation outside of the Buddhist context in a way. But watch the video and see what you think. Okay, so this is our main task today, and this is to look at 4 readings and to make notes in this way. So we're going to divide a page in 2, We're going to put, is meditation a religious practice at the top, and we're going to put yes on one side and no in the other. And I want you to read the 4 readings that I've attached. The 4 readings are, one is called Bhikkhu Bodhi on meditation. It's about the beliefs of a particular monk called Bhikkhu Bodhi, an American Theravada monk. Then there's an article called It's Time for Your Meditation by Roger Dobson, which looks at various bits of research that have been done into the health benefits of meditation. There is an article called Divorcing Mindful Meditation from Religion with Sam Harris. So that talks about the views of that guy, Sam Harris, who you looked at in that video. And there is also a section from a textbook. The textbook is called Buddhism, and it's by a woman called Denise Cush. It's actually quite a textbook we're going to use quite a few times in the course of the course. And this is a little section, just a small section about magical powers. So that is about the belief that that meditation can bring certain magical powers, supernatural powers. Now look, here's what I want you to do. So I want you to give me any reasons why you'd think that meditation is religious. So that's, firstly, any links between meditation and supernatural beliefs. So that's where your magical power stuff's going to. What kind of magical powers do Buddhists think you can gain from meditation? Now, my idea would be, well, you've got to, if you believe that meditation can bring you magical powers, that kind of puts you in the religious bracket. Only a religious person would believe in that stuff. Secondly, you could also put on that side reasons why it's important to accept Buddhist teachings if you practice meditation. So some of this stuff, particularly the Bhikkhu Bodhi article, is going to argue that, at least for some kinds of meditation, you can't really practice it, or you wouldn't even want to practice it if you didn't accept certain Buddhist beliefs. In the no section, it's quite simple. Any information about ways in which people can benefit from meditation if they're not Buddhist or not religious. You might even want to, in the Sam Harris article, put reasons why some people like Sam Harris would think that it's better to use meditation outside of Buddhism and not label yourself a Buddhist. How are you going to make your notes? Well, if you can quote from the articles, fantastic, but the most important thing is to summarize the ideas. Can you refer to sources of information? So put the names of the articles. So you can say, in this article called this, put the names of the authors. Lastly, can you think of ways to respond to the points being made in the readings? Can you think of ways in which, if this is the point saying meditation is a religious practice, how can you respond to it? If it's saying meditation is not a religious practice, how can you respond to it? Last thing to say, one thing you will find in that one of the articles, It's Time for Your Meditation, that article, you will find that there's huge amounts of information because it basically goes through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different studies which show that meditation benefits people in particular ways. What I would do is just pick out, say, 3 of those studies to show that some of the benefits of meditation. And when you pick out the studies, try to be really clear. What was the place that did the study? Which university did it? How many people did they study, if you've got that information? What were their findings? So try and be pretty specific to say, this study showed this about meditation and why it's good for you. So, okay. So what I want you to do is basically get your readings, pause this video and do that task, and then unpause, and I'll go through these readings a little bit with you when you've unpaused. Okay, you should have unpaused now and got your notes in front of you. So I'm just going to go through these things a little bit, just highlighting some of the points I wanted to bring out. If you've the article, It's Time for Your Meditation. Look, the main things you needed to have in the no column here is just the information. Look, I'll pick out one example to show you the sort of things I mean. So, for example, you've got this study at Harvard Mental Health. A study that was reported in the Harvard Mental Health Letter. That will be some kind of journal of scientific research. Studied 160 people and found that, compared with people who were taking medication, people having mindfulness therapy, which is basically a form of meditation, were less likely to relapse into depression. So that showed that you're more likely to make a recovery from depression if you're doing meditation than if you were taking an antidepressant medication. So that's an interesting study. So it's that kind of information that we want. I would make sure that in your notes you have at least some stuff about depression or anxiety, because that is the thing that it's used most often to treat. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward, that stuff. You just need examples there. Let's talk about Bhikkhu Bodhi, because you might think, well, hold on, if it's got scientifically proved benefits, meditation, then surely it obviously can be, and those benefits weren't just to Buddhists, they're to anyone, then surely meditation obviously does work for all people. However, Bhikkhu Bodhi's, that indicates that surely you don't have to be a Buddhist to meditate. But Bhikkhu Bodhi's article kind of addresses that, because Bhikkhu Bodhi accepts that meditation can be practiced by anyone, and it can lead to, and he says, benefits that range from enhanced job performance and better relationships to deeper, calm, more compassion and greater awareness. But what he's trying to say is that those are some of the benefits of meditation, and I'm sure he would agree with the medical benefits that we've seen. However, what he's saying is that actually that's one level of meditation, but there is a deeper level of meditation that does require some religious belief, or to be a part of a religious tradition. And that, because the deeper level is that the attainment of nirvana, that basically the main goal of meditation is to reach nirvana. And he says to do that, you need to be religious, you need to be a Buddhist. Why do you need to be a Buddhist to get there? Well, one is, he says, in the Buddhist tradition, it says that to get to the higher stages of meditation and the higher stages of the path to nirvana, you need to have faith in the Buddha and his Dharma. So, in other words, to get to those higher stages of meditation, we must have faith in the truth of the Four Noble Truths, and so on, and those kind of things. Another key, another thing is that, a key aspect in the Eightfold Path is right view. Understanding that the Four Noble Truths are true, and those kind of things. If you don't, so to get to the higher stages where you're really, the whole point of insight meditation isn't just to be calm and peaceful and able to cope with depression, but to really have a deep insight into these truths. Well, you're never going to get that deep insight if you don't accept that those things are true on an intellectual level. You're trying, we talked about this when we talked about Vipassana meditation, you're trying to make your knowledge of the Four Noble Truths from a theoretical knowledge into a deep sense of understanding. Same with like the truth, like the three marks of resistance, like say anatta. You understand intellectually that there's no fixed you, but you need to, through insight meditation, make that into a lived reality. You really understand with your whole being that there is no fixed person, such person as you. Now, what Bhikkhu Bodhi is trying to say here is that unless you accept those teachings, and you'd only accept those teachings if you were basically a Buddhist, then you will not get the higher benefits of meditation. So I think Bhikkhu Bodhi would be saying, yes, you don't have to meditate to be a Buddhist, but to get the higher benefits of meditation, you do. Bhikkhu Bodhi doesn't phrase it like this, but I, at the end of the article, have pointed out that you could make some kind of samatha vipassana distinction here. That for the samatha aspects of meditation, you don't need to be Buddhist, because it's, anyone can have those insights. But vipassana is much deeper. It's kind of trying to say to you, you have no inherent or fixed self. It's trying to make you think that you should give up all your desires and cravings and stuff like that they're all bad for you. Now, unless you are a Buddhist, you're not even going to want to give up those things. So you're not even going to have the motivation to give them up. So some people might say, if you make that distinction between samatha and vipassana, some people might say, samatha, you don't need to be religious, but vipassana you do. I should stress that is my interpretation, not Bhikkhu Bodhi's. He doesn't talk about samatha and vipassana. Okay, next article to use. So I'd have put Bhikkhu Bodhi basically on the no side, but he's a bit on the yes side too, because he's kind of saying yes for some kinds of meditation and no for others. Sam Harris just thinks that meditation is really good for you, and but that you shouldn't do it in a religious context. It's this bit that stands out to me. He said, Christians may have developed physics, but that doesn't mean studying physics requires an adherence to Christian thought. So basically, he's just saying it's just it just happens to be that Buddhists have discovered meditation. But meditation is a good thing, and it's got nothing to do with the Buddhist religion. That's how he's trying to phrase it. The reason why he's particularly against putting meditation in a Buddhist context is because he's against people having religious labels. So if you look at there's a paragraph about halfway down on the second side where it says, most people who teach mindfulness are still in the religion business. And then he goes on, if you are declaring yourself a Buddhist, you are part of the problem of religious sectarianism that has needlessly shattered the world. So here Sam Harris is basically saying that having a religious identity is a problem. He feels, Sam Harris, that religious sectarianism means dividing people against each other based on their religion. You know, I'm this religion, you're that religion, you're the other. And his idea is that that's a bad thing because it leads to conflict in the world. I personally think it's a bit of a mindless argument from Sam Harris, if I just put my bit in here, that the idea that we should just give up all kind of identities just in case they cause a conflict. And actually, religion hasn't really been the cause of many conflicts worldwide. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. But that's what he thinks. He thinks, look, Buddhism isn't fundamentally Buddhist. It just comes from Buddhism. It just happens to be that Buddhists invented it. Sorry, meditation isn't fundamentally Buddhist. It just happens to come from Buddhists. Buddhists invented it, but we can just extract it from Buddhism, and we should extract it from Buddhism because we want to get away from religious identities, because all religious identities do is cause conflict. Now, how could you criticize Sam Harris? Well, I think first of all you could say, does someone identifying as a religion really cause conflict? I don't think so. I think religion can be involved in conflict if people have a negative view of people of other religions, but just by having a religious identity, by saying I am Buddhist, it wouldn't that doesn't seem to be a cause of conflict. So that part of his article seems wrong. But more particularly, if we turn back to the front of the article, in that quote there, he says he talks about the discoveries that meditation has made into the mind, and he says one of these discoveries is that the sense of self that we all carry around with us day to day is an illusion. Well, the interesting thing there is then that Sam Harris actually believes in anatta. He believes there's no such thing as the self, as a fixed self. So he holds on to that Buddhist belief of anatta. So it could be argued that actually Sam Harris kind of is Buddhist, particularly if you put his views against kind of people we've called secular Buddhists. He probably, obviously he's not the sort of person who would believe in reincarnation and the miraculous side of Buddhism and so on and so on. But in some way, you might say, well, to accept what he says about Buddhism, you kind of have to accept a key Buddhist teaching, and that is anatta. So I might say he hasn't really proved that meditation is not religious, if we include anatta as a key aspect of the Buddhist religion. Okay, let's look at the last reading. By the way, it's on a video, so the idea is to pause occasionally if you need to. Now, the last reading is this part from the book by Denise Cush, Magical Powers. So what kind of magical powers do we have? This should all be on the yes, because, if you believe in the supernatural powers of meditation, then it kind of makes meditation from seem like this average or ordinary everyday thing that anyone can do to quite a religious thing. Let's just have a look at some of these powers. Creating magical doubles of oneself, the power to become invisible, to pass through walls or other solid bodies, to dive in and out of the earth as if it were water, to walk on water as if it were earth, to fly through the air, to touch the moon or sun, to travel either in person or in a magical mind-made double to other worlds and planets, including the realms of the gods, the ability to turn a little food into much, or ordinary food into delicious food, and the ability to appear in other forms, i.e. as a different person or as an animal. Well, those are some pretty cool beliefs. So all of this might, I suppose if you say, imagine someone goes to a meditation class for the first time, they probably think, I've heard about meditation, I want to relax, it's a good thing to do. Imagine if the first lesson they went to and they said, well, welcome to the meditation class. Within, as we go through the meditation class, it's going to be a 6-week course. In week 1 and 2, we'll be learning to relax our mind. And when you get to weeks 4 and 5, we'll be learning to fly through the air and pass through walls. Well, that person, if they were not religious, would probably leave the class. They'd probably think this is a crazy practice led by crazy people. Only a religious person would believe in those supernatural aspects of meditation. Now, how can we challenge that belief? Doesn't this prove that meditation is a religious practice? Well, I suppose that would prove that meditation was a religious practice if Buddhists were very keen on saying these magical powers are essential to meditation and you must believe in them. However, as the reading should have showed you, they are very underplayed in Buddhism. The Buddha forbids his monk to display these powers. So it's not like he's saying, oh, this is what meditation is all about. In fact, he thinks they're a distraction. And he says that monks are not allowed to display their magical powers even if they had them. Probably because he thinks, well, it just leads to start going against the spirit of what meditation's all about. Meditation's about trying to get to enlightenment, not these magical powers. So it's against the Vinaya to display magical powers to lay people. It's considered a distraction and not essential. Sometimes they can be useful. The Buddha sometimes uses his magical abilities to show off his power and to show the truth of his, to show that he really is an extraordinary human being. That might make some people listen to the religion. But in general, they are regarded as not essential, not part of the mainstream of what meditation's about. Meditation is about calming your mind and developing insight. It's not about magical powers. And that means if someone came along to a Buddhist center and said, well, I don't believe in these magical powers, Buddhists would never say, oh, well, you can't meditate. They would say, no, that's fine. If you don't believe in them, that's fine. You're welcome to meditate, and there are lots of other benefits that you can get from meditation without these magical powers. So I don't think this is a great argument for meditation only being a religious practice. A little anecdote aside to this, I remember when I was studying meditation for the first time, someone told me this story. This person clearly believed in the magical powers of meditation. They said that they heard a story from a monk who lived in the forest, the forest monk, and he would meditate under a tree. And every time he sat down to meditate for a long period of time, he would always feel like something hitting him on the head. And it really distracted him and annoyed him. And eventually he brought a friend with him and said, I don't know what's happening when I'm meditating. Can you watch me while I meditate? And the answer was that he was floating into the air through the powers of his magical meditation and hitting his head on a branch. And then by the time he came out of his meditation, he was down on the floor again, so he didn't know what was happening. Now, what you make of beliefs like that, I don't know. I thought it was a funny story. But that's the kind of beliefs that you find sometimes within Buddhism. Okay, so once you've got your notes, we're going to go on to how we might put this into an exam question. So have a look at the next slide. So look, evaluate to what extent meditation is a religious practice. Now, this is how I would structure the exam. What I'd like you to do is basically turn my structure into a slightly more detailed plan, and then I'd like you to write one of the perils. So look, I'd start by saying an argument in favour of saying it's not a religious practice by saying, look at the scientific and health benefits. So there I would put in my evidence part, I'd put my point would be Buddhism clearly can bring is scientifically proven to bring lots of health benefits to people, whether they're Buddhist or non-Buddhist. And there I'd look at, put in a couple of studies, Harvard or whatever the study is, to show it brings these health benefits. Then on my response, I'd say Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi would say, yes, it has these benefits, but yes, that means non-religious people can meditate, but the higher levels of meditation, those leading to nirvana or insight into no self and so on, require the belief in certain Buddhist teachings. Otherwise, they're neither, those kind of meditation are neither desirable nor effective. Second one, I'll talk about Sam Harris. Talk about why Sam Harris thinks that you don't need to be Buddhist to meditate, and talk about why he thinks it's better if you're not a Buddhist. So you talk about sectarianism. Talk about the comparison he makes between Christian physicists. His point is that physics, as we know it, was generally developed by people who were Christians. But he's saying that doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian to practice physics. My response would be, well, hold on. If you accept anatta, as you do, Sam Harris, aren't you in many ways a Buddhist? you've basically accepted a fundamental teaching in the Buddhist worldview. Peril 3, I'd be talking about belief in the supernatural. I'm talking about miracles here. Say, well, talk about, and this is lots of good evidence you can put in here. What are the miraculous aspects of Buddhism, of meditation? What does Buddhism, what benefits does it bring? And really try and make sure your explanation of your point here links to the question. Say, well, this shows that a fundamental aspect of Buddhist teaching about meditation is linked to a view of the supernatural that would only be held by a religious person. Then when you do your response, you're going to say, but hold on, that would make sense if, that point would make sense if supernatural beliefs and miracles and stuff was central to Buddhist teachings about meditation, but they're not. They're only a side effect, and in fact they're seen as a distraction by some people. So those would be my 3 perils, and all the way through you've got to think about, you know, how as you're planning it, what are you going to put as your what's going to be your thesis that you're coming back to. And to me, the first peril sums up everything you need to know, which is, I think my thesis would be something like this. You don't need to be religious to meditate, and you can definitely get benefits out of meditating if you're not religious. However, there are some aspects or some goals within Buddhist meditation that you really need to accept Buddhist teachings in order for the meditation to be both desirable, for you want to do that meditation, and effective. So, you know, so the Bhikkhu Bodhi point there is interest, makes that point. In the second peril, Sam Harris makes that the criticism of Sam Harris makes that point, that actually in some ways by accepting anatta he is a Buddhist in a kind of way. And then peril 3, you just would say that argument is basically irrelevant, that hasn't proved one way or another, but it's an interesting digression to go into. So yeah, that's what I want you to do. Write a detailed plan and then write one of the perils out in full. What would you put in introduction? Well, first, like, define what meditation is, cultivation of the mind, however you want to define it. Explain what you mean by, is it a religious practice? That's the key thing. That will make you understand it. So my 2 things would be, do you need to believe Buddhist teachings to meditate? Does it fundamentally involve supernatural beliefs? Those are the 2 things I'd say. Implications. Well, I would say something about the fact that many people today practice Buddhist meditation techniques outside of the religion, and the implications of this question are: is it legitimate? Is that something that's reasonable to do, or is that something that makes no sense to take Buddhism outside of meditation? In terms of sources, talk about the people: Sam Harris, Pali Canon, Denise Cush, all those people. And then conclusion, whatever you want your conclusion to be. But I would advise you to go down that route of saying, yes, it's got some benefits outside of the religion, but at the same time, for some aspects of Buddhism, or some of the goals of Buddhist meditation, particularly the higher ones, you kind of need to agree with Buddhism to either want to or get any benefit from those kinds of meditation. Okay, thank you.